I'm very thankful for being invited to give this lecture. I used to stay with His Holiness Satyanandana Swami close to Berlin, and I think it's around 10 years ago, Maharaj was suggesting that I will come once a week from the ashram, and I will come to the Temple of Berlin, and I will sleep overnight. I will give lecture, evening and morning lecture. So once a week, I will come to Lord Jagannatha and serve him, and serve also the devotees of the Berlin temple. So I think I developed a little relationship with Lord Jagannath by doing this service. And I remember that few years later, I saw again Lord Jagannath in Simachalam for Nishinga Chaturdasi. And as I was taking darshan, I had the feeling Lord Jagannath was saying, "Oh, I remember you. You are doing some service in my temple." So I feel happy that I can do that again this evening, this afternoon. I hope everything goes well with the sound and with the internet. You can hear me?
We can hear properly. Sometimes the video freezes a little bit, but so far everything is fine.
Okay, good. So I was reflecting, I mean, today is a special day. It's the appearance day of Lord Vamanadev, and also the appearance day of Jiva Goswami, one of the 6 Goswami, one of the Acharya of our line. So very auspicious day, also Ekadashi. So we will touch a little bit on the pastimes of Vamanadev later on. But I was wondering which topic I should choose for you today. And I think I was thinking what is actual, what is in the mind of everybody today, and what can be a need for our devotee community. And one thing that I thought could be important is that nowadays it looks the world is a little bit turning ups and down, and we see that there are a lot of confusion, a lot of tensions, everything is unstable, there is fearful propaganda in all directions, a lot of tension, and I think you can feel it much more stronger in Berlin than what we can feel here in a national park in the middle of the forest. But even here we can actually feel that there are a lot of tension in the air. And I was thinking to address a topic about taking shelter at the Lord in difficult situation. So that will be the topic of this lecture, and we will start by reading one verse of Bhagavad Gita that is, I think, quite well known to all the devotees. Still, it's ever fresh, and I was reading it again today, and I found again many different points I did not know before, especially in the purport. So this is Bhagavad Gita 1866. This is, maybe some of you know and like to chant the Sanskrit with me. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaim shyami ma suchaha. So you can imagine you are all on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In front of you, you can see Krishna on the chariot addressing Arjuna, his disciple. And the Lord tells Arjuna, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Please do not fear. And actually, in the beginning, I will read part of the purport, but at the beginning of the purport, Prabhupada explained how Krishna, because this verse comes almost at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. So during the whole Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was presenting a lot of different process, a lot of different philosophical understanding, a lot of different knowledge about the Brahman, about the super soul. And now we come to the point where he said, now you give that all up and you just surrender unto me. So this is where Krishna comes at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. I gave you a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, but now, please, you just surrender to me and I will deliver you of all the fears. So now I will read a little bit part of the purport here. In the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it was said that only one who has become free from all sinful reactions can take to the worship of Lord Krishna. Thus, one may think that unless he is free from all sinful reaction, he cannot take to the surrendering process. To such a doubt, it is here said that even if one is not free from all sinful reaction, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, is automatically freed. There is no need of strenuous effort to free oneself from sinful reactions. One should unhesitatingly accept Krishna as the supreme savior of all living entities. With faith and love, one should surrender unto him. Very, very beautiful. And then later on in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes from Hari Bhaktivilas, and he said that no matter what activities one is doing, in which varna he is, if he's an electrician, a student, or whatever he's doing on the social level, he should always see that the activities that he's doing will help him to progress on the spiritual path. And then I read a little bit more of the purport. One should be confident that in all circumstances, Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. There is no need of thinking how one should keep the body and soul together. Krishna will see to that. One should always think himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. As soon as one seriously engages himself in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, at once he becomes freed from all contamination of material nature. There are different processes of religion and purificatory process by cultivation of knowledge, meditation in the mystic yoga system, etc. But one who surrenders unto Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. That simple surrender unto Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make all progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. And then that's a long purport, therefore I don't read the entire, but later on in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about Krishna having a form and Krishna being so attractive. And the fact that Krishna is so attractive, it makes much more easy for the bhakti yogi to connect with Krishna and take shelter unto him. And then the last few sentences I want to read again. Prabhupada writes, one should be attracted by the beautiful vision of Krishna. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. One who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. And then Prabhupada ends, the particular words used in this verse, masuchaha, don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, are very significant. One may be perplexed as how one can give up all kinds of religion forms and simply surrender unto Krishna. But such a worry is useless. Prabhupada writes. It's actually very, very powerful. When we read Prabhupada's book with attention, It's just so touching to the heart. It's so really so beautiful. So this is the topic for today. It's sometimes in what we read or what I will speak, there is sometimes thought of taking shelter, which is more on the sense of having difficulty and we need help, but also on the point of surrender, which is actually surrender is more like to give up, to give to the Lord, to let go. To let go. And the two, taking shelter and surrender, are actually very, very closely together. Very often they are sometimes used even as synonyms into the scriptures. I found few verses actually that mention how close surrender and taking shelter is. But I think maybe we don't need to go too much into quotes. And also the time is limited. I see it's already 4:20. So I think I will immediately go forward. I just have to see, Mangala, you were asking me to make a double recording. And I have everything ready, but it's still in the other room. Should I go and pick it up, or you think it should work?
It's Krishna Krishna's recording, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, it seems to be working.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good. So any times that we hear some verses in the scriptures, it is good to take out a principle of the verse. A principle is something that works for everybody at every time. And from this verse of Bhagavad Gita, the principle is by taking shelter or by surrendering to Krishna, one will get full protection. Huh? So this will work for everyone, every one of us. So the aim of this lecture today, I would like to provide tools and understanding that will help all of you to take shelter at the Lord. And we will have 3 sections in this lecture. One will be, why do we need to take shelter in Krishna? The second one will be, what stops us to take shelter? What is the impediment for us to take shelter? And the last one will be, how? How do we take shelter at the Lord? So in the first section, why do we need to take shelter of Krishna? The main reason is because we need protection. We need protection. Therefore, we turn to Krishna for shelter. We might request Krishna for protection for many different things. We might request Krishna for protection of our body. We might have a disease. We might be in a danger. Like often the devotees, when we have a drive by car, a drive that is substantial, we will sing the Nishinga Pranam. We pray to Lord Nishingadev, a deity that is there giving protection to his devotee. We pray to Lord Nishingadev to protect us so that we do not get any accident on the road. So this is an example of protection for the body. I remember once flying with His Holiness Satchidananda Swami from Zagreb to London. It was right after a Vyasa Puja celebration in the winter time. And just arriving in close to London, just before the landing, there was a huge amount of wind and the plane was shaking, was really, really severely shaking. And we both, His Holiness Satchidananda Swami and me, put our hands in our bead bag and I had a really, really very well concentrated japa, and it was really, please Krishna, keep this airplane into line so that our body will remain alive. So this is one way often why we take shelter of the Lord, for protection of the body. But this is not the most important one, because I guess many of you have heard that we are originally spiritual souls. So one other protection that we often, very, very often need, most of the time we need this protection, is actually a protection against the 6 enemies. 6 enemies are some enemies that are inside of us. I was hearing a lecture of Saturdayfeast Swami recently when he was saying, the enemy is you. There is no enemy outside, the enemy is you. So we have some enemies inside of us that are called lust, greed, envy, anger, illusion, and madness. And those enemies are inside of us, and we need actually protection against those enemies inside of us. I know devotees that when they chant the prayer to Lord Nishingadev, their main prayer is, please protect me from making any offenses toward any living entity, toward any Vaishnavas, because those 6 enemies inside of us, because of them, then we will be pushed to actually offend people, we will be pushed to act in egoistic ways and actually give pain to others. Therefore, those are major enemies that we need protection from. And the last point about why, against what we need to take shelter, or for what do we need to take shelter, I wrote protection from anxieties, because I think this is a huge problem that many people have. And even in Krishna consciousness, even devotees are sometimes overcome by type of anxieties. It's very modern nowadays. Panic attack and things like this are very common in the life of people. So very often those anxieties are coming up in the mind, and for there we should also take shelter at the Lord. There are different ways to deal with anxieties. I remember once also being in the airplane in a difficult situation, and there was one lady in front of us who was really scared, and she called the stewardess, and the stewardess was telling her, please breathe, please keep breathing, breathe deeply. So that's a very physical way to deal with anxiety, but we will look for spiritual ways to take shelter when anxieties are there. But first, it's good to see from where those anxieties are coming from. Most of our anxieties are there because of an attachment to the fruit of our activities. We are anxious because we would like things to happen in a certain way, and we are extremely anxious that it will work the way we want the things to happen. So this attachment to the fruits of our actions, our desire, our selfish desires, they are usually at the root of our anxieties. The anxieties are there because we hope so strongly that our desires or our attachment will get fulfilled. But I found a very nice purport in the 7th canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam, where Srila Prabhupada speaks about how to deal with those anxieties, and he's very nicely connecting that with the verse of Bhagavad Gita that we were reading today. So Prabhupada writes, this process of Krishna consciousness is the best, because Lord assures, I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Then Prabhupada said, there is no need to worry, for the Lord himself assures that he will care for his devotee and save him from the reaction of sinful activities. Therefore, since the Lord himself assures that he will dissipate the result of fruitive material activities, there is no need to be worried. So that was for the first section. Why do we need to take shelter of the Lord? Protection of the body, protection of the enemies that we have inside of our heart, and protection from anxieties. And now we will move to the second section, which is quite a short one. What stops us from taking shelter in Krishna? And I do not know, because it's the first time I do online lecture, is it possible to make it interactive and ask the devotees for their answer. What could they see as a blockage for us to take shelter? What stops us to take shelter?
Yep.
Anyone have a suggestion?
Sonia,
We want to have control.
Yeah.
did you hear that?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Very good.
And Kunya Vihari?
We don't see the whole picture. So sometimes we see that devotees suffer. We don't see the whole picture why it is, and then we get doubts. Oh, will Krishna really protect me?
Okay. Very good.
Prabhu, can I just ask one question for the previous points we mentioned?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Prabhu, you said three things: protection for the body, and protection from the six enemies, and also protection from anxiety. And I was just reflecting upon this point when this whole pandemic theme has come up, and all the things that are going through now. And even in the Krishna consciousness circle, the astrologers predict like, okay, there's much more worse to come in the December or something. And it's kind of confusing when we hear these kind of things, because for a devotee at least, there's no cause of worry at all. Like they're predicting something bad. What exactly is bad for a devotee? Because I don't see anything bad for a devotee. So for example, the body, protection from the body, you said, protection from body causes anxiety for the karmis, because they still want to gratify their senses and they don't have an ultimate goal. Obviously, they are worried. And on the other hand, they are elevated souls, and they are worried because they're going to leave this body and they have the compassion for the other souls. They still have a lot of job to do and they're about to leave the body. Mm-hmm. And someone like ordinary people like me, and I would be happy like, okay, it's time for me. I was waiting for this time and Krishna has promised me Sarva Dharma Paritraj. I'm done, like I'm going back now. So, and when astrologers say like something bad is going to happen, I always get confused, like how to understand this in the context. Like there's nothing bad for a devotee until and unless the basic necessities are made, like food, shelter, and clothing. That's it. Like we are happy. Like whatever happens, it's just Krishna's plan. Like we need not have to worry. So how to understand this?
Yeah, thank you. I would say that often we see the devotees and the non-devotees, but there is actually huge levels. There are a huge degree from the non-devotee to the devotee, to the pure devotee. And we are somewhere between there. Maybe some of you are pure devotees, but unless we come to the level of pure devotee, then is the stage where actually nothing from this world can touch us. When one is a pure devotee, you see just Krishna everywhere. It just there's no way at all to be touched with any anxiety, because you see Krishna everywhere. But we are somewhere in between, and we can see actually to the degree we are moved by anxieties. We can see, okay, I'm actually not so much seeing Krishna everywhere. I'm actually not so much having faith that Krishna is actually going to protect me. So we are somewhere in between. And as more as we become purified, as more actually we can be free from those anxiety, and as more actually we are able to take shelter of the Lord. As more as we become purified, as more we take shelter at the Lord's lotus feet. Obviously, there are all those propaganda, and it gives a lot of fear to many people. And the thing is, no one really knows will that happen or not. They can predict so many bad things to happen, and then the entire world is meditating on these bad things that might happen, and then all the energy of people meditating on these bad things that might happen will help these bad things to happen, because everyone meditate on it. So I personally, from my side, think it's good to be a little bit aware of what is happening in the world, but I will not empower propaganda that's what might happen, because it might not happen as well. And I will try to feed as much the positive perspective than the negative one. Thank you for your question. If you agree, we go back to the question of what stops us from taking shelter at the Lord. Maybe I take one or two more answer from your side.
Fear.
Fear, very good. But at the same time, actually, fear should be like a good opportunity for us to take shelter. But it could be that the fear is so great that we are blocked and we cannot take shelter. Yeah.
I would say that we misunderstand what the Lord can do to us, for us. We don't, yeah. We forget that there's someone who is almighty.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And yeah, I think that's a little bit similar of one point that I have here. I wrote actually a lack of faith in Guru, a lack of faith in Krishna, a lack of faith in the process of Bhakti Yoga. This is, if we would have full faith that Krishna is actually going to protect us, then we will be able to take shelter much more easily. Another thought is we have long-lasting habits to be the controller, to actually fix the problems ourselves, to be the one who is in control, the doer, the controller. And this is extremely deeply rooted in ourselves. This is what we also call the false ego. So because of that, it's actually very, very difficult to turn towards someone else and to ask for help. We are very much programmed, especially in the West, in doing and fixing everything on our own. And the last point, what stops us in taking shelter, here I would say what I'm saying like now are some thoughts. Huh? It's not directly let's say quotes from the Shastra. Those are some thoughts. The third one was pride, because for taking shelter you need some humility. When you are proud, then again you think you can do it on your own. You think you don't need the help of anyone else, but you need some humility to actually turn toward Krishna and say, okay, my dear Lord, I need your help. Good, so we will go to the third section, and after that we can open more for question. The third section that might be maybe the most important is how do we take shelter at the Lord? And it's actually not so easy. I remember the time I will come to Berlin Temple to give lectures. I once was giving a lecture about taking shelter in difficult situations. And I remember that few days later, life became tough like anything. And I was in the ashram of my spiritual master. I was cleaning the pots after the meal, and everything was falling apart in my life. And I was becoming really, really challenged. And suddenly I heard a voice. I don't know if it was the super soul or if it was the mind, but the voice said, "Why don't you take shelter? You were giving this lecture about taking shelter. Why don't you take shelter?" And oh yeah, good point. And I noticed it's not so easy. It's not so easy to take shelter. But I found today beautiful quotes from the 11th canto that give us a practical tool in how to take shelter. This purport was not written by Prabhupada, because at the 11th canto Prabhupada had already left this mortal world, but it was written by the disciple of Srila Prabhupada who were translating the Bhagavatam at that time. So here, that's what I wrote. Taking shelter of Krishna means taking shelter of devotional service to Krishna and obeying him. Lord Krishna demands this in Bhagavad Gita. And if we comply with the order of the Lord, our life can become fully auspicious and successful. Sooner than we expect, we may, by Krishna's mercy, enter the kingdom of God for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Found it very, very powerful and very, very beautiful. So here they say that this taking shelter is done in two ways. Is taking shelter of the process of devotional service and by obeying the instruction that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. So for example, one of the main instructions that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita is always think of me. And therefore we are so lucky as bhakti yogis because we can think of Krishna in a very easy way, because Krishna has names, Krishna is a form, Krishna has qualities, Krishna has pastimes. So all are elements of Lord Krishna that allow us to think of him, to meditate on him. If you are a jnani yogi, or if you don't have a personal understanding of the absolute truth, it's very, very difficult to always think of Krishna. But for a bhakti yogi, it's actually much more easy. We have really a lot of thoughts and meditation that allow us to think of Krishna. But our practices of Krishna consciousness, they need to be done with a proper mood. And here I would like to read a small quote from His Holiness Satyanandana Swami. It's not the direct quote that what he said, but when I used to travel with him, I would write diaries. So while he will give lecture, I will take notes and then I will write those notes back. So it's not 100% word by word, but quite 85% exactly what he was saying. So that's the quote. If you just have faith in Krishna consciousness and you just read and chant in a proper way, even anxiety and fear cannot have any control over you. What to say of lust, anger, and greed, and all those things? Whenever you feel you are getting down in your consciousness, just take this practice seriously. Have contact with Krishna through reading his book and chanting his holy name. This is a very important message. And if you ask me, Satyanandana Swami, of what I know of Krishna consciousness, that's all I know. That's all I have understood. But it is enough. Just take shelter in Krishna's holy name. This will help you to see everything in a Krishna conscious way. I found very, very, very beautiful. We have to take shelter in Krishna, and this way of taking shelter is in following the instruction of Krishna and in our spiritual practice. And our spiritual practice are actually following the instruction of Krishna, but they need to be done in a proper way, in a proper mood, so that, like Maharaj said, our practice should allow us to actually have a deep connection with Krishna. I just repeat this small sentence: have contact with Krishna through reading his books and chant his holy name. That means when we chant, when we read, we should, the objective or the aim should be that we contact Krishna, that we have this contact with Krishna. And this is extremely powerful. And this will take us away. This is the way of taking shelter, having this personal contact with the Lord. A few days ago, I had a beautiful thought on chanting japa that I like to share with you. I had a meeting that had been quite difficult, where some members of the meeting were angry, and I even got angry myself. And then after that, I went on a walk with my wife, and I went barefoot on the earth to ground myself and try to let go of those energies. And I could see the mind was just pervaded with those feelings. It was very difficult to concentrate. But after sometimes I thought, do I want to be with Krishna? Why I chant japa? Or do I prefer to stay with all my managerial problems? What actually do I want? I have the choice. I have the choice to decide where I want to go. Is it more full with nectar, full with happiness, to be with Krishna himself? Or is it more relishable to stay with my consciousness with the problem? What do I actually want? Do I want to be with problem, or do I want to be with Krishna? And after a short while, I understood, no, actually, now I will take the firm decision. I will use my free will to make the choice. Actually, I want to be with Krishna. And now I will take my energy, my strength, and I will pray to be with Krishna in the chanting. And the switch was done. It's a matter of choice. This is just, by the way, a way to bring our chanting in a nice way of taking this conscious choice. Actually, I want to be with Radha and Krishna. This is my time with them when I chant the holy name. So I see my time is almost up. I will just do a reading of 3 quotes that are also, I found very, very powerful, and that might be just like a summary of the lecture. And there is a book, this is called Mana Shiksha. This is a book written by one of our Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, which is like a padati, which is like a step-by-step process in the practice of Krishna consciousness. And we have devotees from ISKCON who have written some very, very elaborate and powerful commentaries on this book. And here I have 3 small paragraphs from His Holiness Shivaram Swami, who speak on the verse number 7 of Mana Shiksha. And this verse 7 is speaking about deceit. And Shivaram Maharaj said that this deceit is actually any other desire that we have than to serve Krishna. So this is very much connected to the 6 enemies, to the enemy inside of ourselves. So it's not exactly on taking shelter, but I'm sure you can get the link and benefit from it. So here he said, a solution for this deceit, he said, you must purify this deceit, in bracket, any other desire than to serve Krishna, if praying, surrendering, meditating, and chanting are done with the right mentality. And then he said, mainly with humility. So this is the main mentality, this is the main mood in everything that we do. Chanting, reading, praying, meditating, all those activities of Krishna consciousness needs to be pervaded with humility. This deceit will be vanquished from the heart and will never be able to re-enter again when we are in this mode of humility. Then the second one, this is also very much on humility, asking for mercy. Whether qualified or unqualified, one can make a claim for mercy. Mercy do not demand you to become qualified. You just need to ask for it. It might come or not, but you can just ask for it. Asking for mercy is the mood or the process of chanting the holy name. We are begging for the mercy of Radha and Krishna. This is the summary of this verse. We need to learn to call for mercy. The mood of begging is called humility. And then the last one, that's also very beautiful. Those prayers and meditation, basically all what you find in Prabhupada's book, are there to direct our mind from the duplicity of materially contaminated devotional service toward what is really pure. One then learns how to meditate on Shri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Prabhupada has given us so many beautiful songs, pastimes, poems that are meant to actually invoke our meditation. They are not just books, but they can be a constant source of practice. So this is what I wanted to share with you. The topic was taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrendering to Him and going over the dualities of this world, over all the difficulties we are facing. I was hoping to give you some tools and understanding about the need of taking shelter. We saw shortly what were the blockage against us to take shelter, and the last section was how to take shelter, which was mainly about turning to Krishna, contacting Krishna in a powerful way with this sambandha, this relationship with Krishna, and to do our practice with the proper mood, especially a mood of humility. So I hope it had been helpful. I end with a very beautiful, I just see now in my notes, a very beautiful visual analogy of a bee that is entering a flower and going deep into the flower and is getting the nectar, pollen of this flower. And as the bee is tasting the nectar, at the same time, she's protected from the wind and she's protected from the sun. So this analogy is that for us, when we take shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, not only we will get relief and be protected from the suffering and difficulties of this material world, but we will be able to taste the nectar of Krishna consciousness, like the bee is relishing the pollen of the flower. Good, then I stop here, and I'm very happy if you have some questions or some comments.
Hare Krishna, Gaurahari Prabhu, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you that you share your experience. And I have a question. For example, you told us about the proud person, and for example, if you can see this person which very proud and don't want to take shelter, yeah, but we know that if he'll not take shelter in this moment, it would be troubles for him, problems, yeah, and one hand we can say, okay, it is his experience and he can live his life, but the other hand, for example, he's part of our family, and then we don't want that this person would be suffer. Yeah, and how can we help this person to take shelter? That's my question.
Well, thank you. I think if the person is believing in God, then it's already a huge step. This is already a huge step, because then he will at least intellectually accept the idea in taking shelter of the Lord. And then the idea will be from there to help the person to connect in a deeper way with the Lord so that he can take shelter. But if the person is not believing in God, then it might be actually very, very difficult.
But if this person devotee?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, if this person is devotee, it's interesting because it shows us how much gap it might be in our life as devotees between the philosophical understanding of Krishna consciousness and our real ability actually to practice Krishna consciousness in a deep way. Even what I was mentioning before of myself, giving lecture about taking shelter, and then when time were very tough, it was difficult for me to take shelter. So even for devotee, it's actually not easy to do that. What I remember once, we were in Russia with my spiritual master, and there was a devotee, Viprakrit Prabhu, who was the driver of Maharaj during our time. And Viprakrit was asking Maharaj, where do we get the strength to take shelter? And Maharaj swear you need spiritual strength. You need spiritual strength to take shelter. So therefore, if a devotee is in this situation and has this difficulty to take shelter, he will need Sangha. He will need strong association, maybe with his spiritual master, maybe with devotees he trusts, or devotees who are more advanced than him. He will need to read more and read carefully, or maybe even research. That's very beautiful things you can do when difficulties are there. You go to the Bhaktivedanta database and you research quotes, or when Prabhupada speak about those particular difficulties and what solution Prabhupada brings on that. And then you meditate on that. You learn verses that speak about those difficulties, of how you can deal with that. So this is taking shelter. This is taking shelter in the spiritual process. So maybe this devotee, as every devotee, have some entry door in their relationship with Krishna. Some it will be kirtan, some it will be japa, some it will be the philosophy, some it will be the association with devotees. So try to help this devotee to find his entry door so that he get more spiritual nourishment, more spiritual strength. And then with this spiritual strength, he will be more able to take shelter. I hope it helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Is there any other question? Sonia?
Krishna.
Hare
My
Krishna.
question is nearly similar. My English is not as good. I try my best. Have you got any recommendation or any tip? Let me say I'm in this mood, angry, fearful, and I made this decision, and I say, okay, now I want to stop it and I want to chant, and I start, and then I start and I do it practically, but I have no connection. I can't get in this because the mind is so, and these emotions and energies are so powerful. Have you any suggestion to what to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. It's a very excellent question, because when those emotions are there, like fear, anxiety, they are overpowering emotions. They are extremely powerful emotions, and there at that time to take shelter might not be easy at all. I'm sure Mangala could give a much better answer about how one will deal with that. Mangala, would you mind to give an answer on that?
I mean, what comes to mind spontaneously is to maybe start somewhere small, because sometimes we have the expectation to just switch from being completely in Tamagun to being transcendental in one go, and maybe we can do some small step and say, try to think of something that we know will 100%ly inspire us. Maybe like one, or think of our favorite service or of our favorite devotee. And then when we have this thought, we can maybe do the next thought. What was something this favorite devotee once said that was inspiring? Then we think about this. And then when we heard that, we can think, what scripture did this come from? And then we can go deeper and deeper without trying to go like from in 1 second from being very fearful to the next, of being completely detached. To give it some time, and to also accept that it takes time, and that the mind is something that has its own dynamic, and we cannot just program it like a computer. Yeah. What spontaneously comes to mind, maybe someone else has some ideas, or Gaurahari has some ideas for sure.
I had some thoughts also. Sometimes in those moments when the mind is very disturbed or it's very tough, taking shelter should be can be powerful if you do a prayer with your own words, and you really pray to the Lord. You could even repeat the prayer a few times so that it absorbs the mind. But you go to the Lord, you fold your hands, and you speak to the Lord and explain how you are, how you feel, and you ask for help. And I just remember now, there was a time we had a meeting in front of the whole community in Golokadam, and suddenly one of the members of the community started to speak really super heavy regarding to me in front of everyone, and it was wow, it was really difficult to swallow. I just, after sometimes I just stood up and left the meeting and came here to my house, and I'm a little bit sensitive by nature, so it was I have a thin skin. So I went, I lay down on my bed, and my body was shaking, and I was really like finished. And then after that, I thought, okay, let me take shelter in Krishna. So I took pastimes of Krishna. I took a book with pastimes of Krishna, and I started to read loud. And my mind was still coming, oh, this and this and this and this, but I just kept repeating and kept on reading loud. And after, I can promise, after 5 or 10 minutes, it had changed a lot. It had changed a lot because I was reading loudly. The mind had changed a lot. I was much more pacified. I mean, it still took me a little time to digest further. But for example, if you chant japa and your mind, japa, it's very easy to space out when you chant japa. So it might not be the ideal way when the emotions are very strong, negatively influenced. But for example, if you take kartals or musical instruments and you chant loud the Maha Mantra, and at the same time you pray to the Lord is in the heart, and He is most powerful, no doubt. He is the most powerful, so He can really help. Often it's actually mentioned. There is in the Manashiksha one verse before. Raghunath Das Goswami said that on our spiritual way there are those 6 enemies that are like highway robbers. They are there to stop us on our spiritual path and rob us of all our spiritual advancement. And then Raghunath Das Goswami said the solution, you have to call very loud to the chief army, the chief of the army of Lord Krishna, which is the great devotees. Prabhupada, the spiritual master, call out to them very loudly. And if you are in public, you call them loudly, but inside of your heart. You can do that. It's possible to call loud inside of the heart. So that's also some thoughts you can do. Otherwise, sometimes you just need sometimes for the emotion to come down and go for a walk. It helps the things to process. But then after, when it gets a little bit settled or a little bit balanced, then get a little strength, then take full shelter and work out how you can protect yourself better the next time and be more connected to Krishna next time such situation comes.
Thank you very much.
So I'm just looking towards Kunya Bihari. I think Jagannatha is still eating, right?
Yeah.
So we do have some more time. So if anyone has a question, we also have someone here in Zoom. You can write in the chat if you have a question. Otherwise, anyone. Kunya Bihari.
If not, I could have last thought. But if someone else is better than my
Bihari has a question.
My question is about such heavy emotion. Is it also sometimes good to feel them, or just to try to suppress them? Because I had once an experience with a negative emotion with jealousy, and I felt it, and it was a very powerful, it felt very good, but very powerful, this emotion. Normally I would try to cut this, but this was somehow, felt good to feel this, not to suppress this. Could you say something about this? I don't know how it is in spiritual things. Maybe it's more from material philosophy or psychology.
Yeah.
Things. You understand, I think.
Yeah, I think Mangala could again give a better answer, but what I will say now is that usually to repress any negative emotion is always a problem. It's all, whatever. I was hearing Bhuttabhavana Prabhu giving a lecture. He was saying, whatever you repress, it's bound to explode and come out into the other direction after some time. So repression is for sure never a good things to do. But the best is not to repress, but to process those feelings, to process those emotions. And we can do that in Krishna consciousness. Our philosophy of Krishna consciousness is very, very, very close to psychology. It's very, very close with dealing with the mind. And if you actually study nicely the Shastra, and even to research, you have problem with jealousy or envy, and you research quotes on how to deal with that, it will give actually a lot of tools that allow you to actually go in processing those emotions in a proper way. Just even the sadhu sangha and the opening the heart to other Vaishnava is already like such an amazing tool that allow us actually to process those emotions and find solution how to rectify bad patterns or do those enemies inside of our heart. So we have actually plenty of material in our Krishna consciousness. But obviously, when we have persons like Mangala who are trained in psychology, they also can help us a little bit more understand those type of things. But repression, as far as I know, is always a bomb, a time bomb, you know, a bomb that is going to explode after some time. But processing the emotions is the best way, and to process that in Sangha with other devotees who are more advanced, and we approach them with humility, I will say that's the best way to process those.
You promised us also some concluding thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking also a little bit of Lord Vamanadev, and I think many of you knows the pastimes, and it might not make much sense to tell it again. But my wife was reading this afternoon I think there are 3 chapters for Lord Vamanadev, and she just read the whole chapters, just the verses. It's not too long, like around 40 minutes, but very, very powerful and beautiful. And even though we might have heard the story a lot, there are always like newer and newer detail that you noticed. And I tried to read a little before the lecture, but time was not on my side. But I just read that when Vamanadev appeared, first he was in the form of Vishnu with 4 arms, weapons, and everything. And then in front of Aditi and Kashyapa Muni, who were his parents, he became like in dwarf form. And then they worship him. And then he started to walk in direction of the palace of Bali Maharaj. And it is said that every step he was doing, the earth was trembling, was shaking. And that's usually when a huge man is stepping that this can happen. And it was very funny because here was the dwarf Vamanadev making steps and the earth was trembling. I found like, wow, far out detail of our description. But there is definitely, to connect a little with our lecture today, there is a big step of surrender that was done by Bali Maharaj to Lord Vamanadev. Vamanadev came and was asking for those step of land, and Bali Maharaj said, you are too young, you are not intelligent, you could get so much more from me, why do you ask for 3 steps of land? And then Vamanadev speak like beautiful verses after that, and Vamanadev said, you can give me everything that can be enjoyed in the 3 worlds. Imagine everything that can be enjoyed in the 3 worlds, you give them to me, I will still not be satisfied if I'm not able to control my senses. So if I'm not able to be satisfied with all of that, but I'm satisfied with 3 steps of land, what's the deal? Give me 3 steps of land. And I mean, he speaks a lot about being satisfied. There is even a verse that is, even if the Brahmana is unsatisfied, he will lose his powers. But if he can be satisfied with what he has, then he will gain power in his life. I mean, really, really beautiful. And if some of you have more time today, please go through these 3 chapters. Really, really powerful and beautiful. But what I was thinking is that Bali Maharaj, Vamanadev came as a beggar. He was the Supreme Lord, but he came to beg the surrender of Bali Maharaj. And I was thinking today we might we are also devotees, we might have Lord Vamanadev coming to knock at our door and beg for something. And for what will he beg? He will beg for a part of us, something that is blocking us to take shelter, something that is impediment, he might beg from us. And I think that's a nice thought to have, that the Lord can appear in any way, in any time, also not only today, and beg from us. Please let go of these unwanted things in your life. Please let go of those impediments. Please let go of these attachments that you have that are not allowing you to take shelter in me. So I think it's a nice day to reflect of maybe something we want to let go of, those shackles or those heavy weights that we have on our shoulder that are actually not allowing us to make progress so fastly in our spiritual life, and to surrender those to the Lord.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurahari, for spending time with us and sharing your realizations in such an inspiring and also very structured way. And at least I feel very refreshed and alive now, and we hope that we can do this soon again. We also have like the Wednesday is available, Saturday morning, so there's many opportunities. So if we can write you again to invite you, that would be wonderful. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you for being. It's a pleasure, even on Skype or those way. It was a pleasure for me to address, and I was praying to the Lord that I might be able to give some help, and I'm happy. I did not hear. It seems there was rapt attention in the room. I did not hear even a noise.
Yeah, sometimes I had the mic switched off, but I
thought so. It was a little joke. Okay, thank you.
See you soon.
Lord Jagannatha ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vaishnav Sangha ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Hare.